Hey, welcome back to Ask Coach Nate, episode number 25. This one is, will running ruin your knees? Here are the facts. We were inspired by this article because that's a popular myth or rumor that you hear regarding running, is that it's bad for you, it's bad for your knees, it's bad for your joints. And so me and Nate are both aware of the fact that there's a lot of research that's been done to debunk it. And we thought we would take you through this article and help you understand at least what the most up-to-date research is regarding the topic. Nate, anything you'd like to say as we dive into this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is one of, many topics like this where there's an idea in the popular psyche that isn't actually confirmed by any research, and it's actually like debunked by research. And I feel like this has been kind of something that I've known and like we've known for a long time, but it still is out there. And that's why Runner's World is like putting out this article, because like Runner's World is a very like popular running type of periodical. Obviously it's not a research like a research cyclical, but they cite a lot of research, and it's like it's really important for people to understand pretty fundamental things like this, so that they're not worried about running, especially cyclists, because you always hear stories about cyclists who like hurt their knees running and then they move to cycling because it's less impact and they can do a lot more of it. But it's definitely a misunderstanding of the cause and effect relationship of things to think that the running caused those issues.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of running and I had some issues with my hips, and that actually was why I decided to take up cycling. And then I found that I enjoyed it perhaps a bit more. And then at some point, I switched back, and running has been great, right? I think my ability to train properly, maybe it helped. Well, anyway, I think for me, this subheadline really gets to the heart of the issue here, right? Why runners are less likely to get knee arthritis, and how to otherwise keep your knees healthy. So I'll give you the intro here, Nate. You'll know you arrived as a runner when you get your first lecture on how you're going to destroy your knees. This advice is usually based on the idea that running increases your risk of developing osteoarthritis in your knees, but the truth is it doesn't. So here is where they really go into the study. Numerous studies have shown that runners have lower rates of knee osteoarthritis than sedentary people. For example, in one study that followed runners and non-runners for almost 20 years, X-rays showed signs of arthritis in the knees of 20% of the runners and 32% of the non-runners. For me, that's pretty clear, and we've seen other studies as well that have gone into this topic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I really like population studies, and like if you look at this and some other studies, it's like it's fun when you have a large data set and you can just kind of see what people are up to out in the population. But it's like clearly there's a big difference between runners and non-runners, and it's not just self-selecting. Like some of the other stuff that they cite in this article, like they refer to some research that kind of corrects for the possible issue where maybe there's just like self-selecting, like people that don't have osteoarthritis are the people that end up running, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And yeah, I mean, it's always just fun when you have lots of different ways of looking at things, whether it's like a long-term study of like individuals or you look at populations. Like it's great when you can just confirm from different angles a certain principle of biology.
Yeah, so I agree too. I thought it was interesting that it did go in and at least try to debunk whether was the people who run a self-selected group of people who were less likely to get injured. And it appears that actually it's not true, that the running itself has some benefit to increasing cartilage or blood flow, or I don't know if actually we fully understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, even for people that have arthritis, like if it's extreme, like maybe they have to take drugs, maybe they have to do other things, and like running is just not an option for them because their development of the disease is sufficiently advanced. But in general, like for people that have low level osteoarthritis symptoms, like running is known to be helpful. Pretty much any kind of activity that gets you moving and gets like blood flow and some stress on your joints is good. I mean, that's like a pretty core principle of biology, and obviously a core principle of training is that like stress is good until it's too much and it like overwhelms the organism. But in general, like if you don't use your knees, if you don't use your body, like it gets weak, it gets frail, and you end up with issues like the second you do anything. So in general, more activity is better until it's too much. But it's like for most people, they're not running that much that they're gonna necessarily get overuse injuries unless that's the only thing they do, and they don't do any strengthening, they don't do any cross training. And the same with cyclists. Like you can ride a lot and it's not a lot of impact. So it's like most people can ride 10, 15 hours a week and not get injured. But if that's all you do for years on end and you never cross train, you never use your muscles or joints in other ways, then you get muscle imbalances and weaknesses, and then are more prone to injury just because you've trained in a certain way for so long that other areas have become weak. So I don't know. I like that about this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of the motivations for me to mix it up. Like I'm never going to be a professional cyclist, right? So while I enjoy riding, if I'm more concerned about health and, you know, long-term injury prevention, then like kind of mixing up is healthy. It's also fun because like if I go travel or I don't necessarily have my bicycle available, I can run as an option. Where if I don't do any running at all, then it's very difficult, right? When I first started with you incorporating running, I think I would only just run like 15 minutes to the gym. And I remember that was like really painful. That was about all I could do without injuring myself. And you kind of build up from there. So something that you need to do to maintain.
Yeah, totally.
I like this one here. Do you see this? So in one study, researchers matched members of a running club with healthy non-runners. All the study participants were at least 50 years old at the beginning of the study. The research followed up with the participants 21 years later. Not only were the runners still alive, it's a bit sad there, but that's the fact. They also reported significantly fewer physical limitations. You know, I really liked that one because I get that from people all the time. Like, oh, you're too old to run. And as you age, like maybe you should scale it back and just do more cycling and stuff. And, you know, as long as you run properly, that's not at least the case from what I can tell here.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as it goes to like, farther down in the article, they talk about like when people do have issues, it is definitely not the fact that they're running. It's usually something else, kind of like we were talking about before, where like maybe their hips are weak. And so that manifests as like extra stress on the knees, which are made to only kind of bend in one direction. So if they're getting some lateral stress, like it is more likely you'll have other injuries if you are weak from, you know, again, from like not doing any kind of strength work, not cross training, not doing core work. And I don't know, it's it's kind of funny because it's just like been clear to me for years that running is good for you. And I feel like I've seen actually on Runner's World, like back when I was running in high school and college, I'm pretty sure I feel like I've seen not the same studies cited, but like this type of article about runners. And it's like, oh, like is running bad for your knees? It's like, it's clearly not. And if you have arthritis, if you have other issues, like running is good for you. So I don't know, it's always fun seeing confirmations for this, but it's a good reminder that we just need to, take a more holistic approach than just doing one thing all the time and nothing else.
Yeah, it's still such a popular myth, right? That was why I think we thought this was interesting. I hear it all the time. This article is this year. It's a brand new article, right? And
yeah,
you hear all the time that like running is bad for your knees. I thought this one was pretty interesting too, where they talk about inflammation and that arthritis is a form of inflammation.
Yeah.
And that one thing is that perhaps like the overall lower BMI, that runners tend to be thinner. That could be one of the reasons that the osteoarthritis is happening at a lower weight in runners, right? So cycling would benefit you there as well. Just having something you can do physically that you can do a lot of and helps you maintain your weight.
Yeah. And I feel like I would maybe add a little bit to that, where just like running and cycling are both great for weight management and keeping you lean, and just keeping you like metabolically fit. And they're known to reduce your risk of like cardiovascular disease in the long run, and even reduce your risk of certain cancers because it keeps you more metabolically fit and it like puts certain stresses on your body that tends to be anti-carcinogenic. But it also, I think, is worth noting that BMI is a nice proxy for leanness and general metabolic health. But even if you were, for example, somebody that did cross train and you went to the gym and you were not extremely light, but you were lean, leanness is usually a better understanding of what your health level is, including for things like inflammation. Because like basically if you're really active and you have a pretty clean diet and you're not eating just like processed foods and like processed carbs, processed meats all the time, you're probably going to have very low inflammation. If you're lean, you exercise and you eat mostly unprocessed plant-based foods. And you know, whether or not you're an omnivore or vegetarian or vegan or whatever, like that might have some impact, but just the fact that you're not eating pizza and Cheetos and like Coke all the time, and that you're, you know, 10%, 12%, 15% body fat instead of like 30+% body fat, like those are the key things. And obviously like everyone wants to, you know, feel good about their body and not have extra weight that's not helpful or healthy for them. So it's like any and all activities are good for that. And it's also not just a matter of health too. I feel like I had a question recently come up where somebody was asking about whether or not I recommend cross training. And I definitely do. I don't necessarily like tell people to do stuff that I'm like athletes that I'm working with. I don't tell them to go to the gym or go running, like if they're not going to enjoy it or at least tolerate it well and recognize that it's productive and that they see value in that. But in general, like if you like it or you tolerate it well, like cross training is both good for like health and injury prevention, but it's also good for performance too. Not like you're going to go do a 5-mile run the day before a bike race, but doing it during the off season, doing it as a part of a general conditioning program is very worthwhile. And you'll see that a lot in different sports. Even just like last week, I shared with you that the new indoor 800-meter British record is set by somebody who runs like not even 20 miles a week. He does a lot of cross training because he's had some injury issues in the past, but he's like, that's an amazing time. Like he beat Seb Coe's old indoor record. And he runs like nothing. He runs less than you do.
All right, let's finish up this article here with this last thing, because I think this gets to what you're talking about. There's a growing body of research suggesting that knee injuries are often caused by weakness or instability elsewhere in the body, especially the hips. That's why strengthening programs for avoiding the overcoming knee injuries often focus on exercise for your quads and glutes. So they give you a video here where you can, you know, get some ideas about some fantastic exercises, which Nate can always provide you as well. But I think for me, I found this to be very much the case that strength training has had the biggest benefit, and I prefer it over stretching. And it's a popular thing for me to say to people that like, I don't believe in stretching is one of the things I like to tell people. And they're very surprised that I don't emphasize it. Like, you know, I actually am pretty flexible. I did a lot of yoga at one point when I was young, and really gave me significant flexibility for most males. But I don't do a whole lot of it, but I do strength training, which I really enjoy. And, you know, recently picked it back up because gyms reopened after COVID, and I was really excited to get back in there. And I can feel a pretty significant difference on some of my long runs. I'm just able to maintain better form and keep my upper body in a position that, you know, if I don't have the strength, it's much more difficult to do. And it makes a big difference towards the end of the runs for me.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like that's often a thing too, that, you know, runners and cyclists do a lot of linear activities. And if you don't do heavy cross training during the winter, or at the very least do some like body weight stuff during the season, when you're doing like side leg raises and clamshells and like exercises to activate your glutes, where you have more access to those motor units and you can like you maintain good form and stay stable while you're riding or running, you're not necessarily setting yourself up in a deterministic way to have injury, but you're definitely increasing your chances of that. And I feel like a lot of times people that are crunched for time and they're only, you know, they're running or they're riding like 6 or 8 hours a week in total, they don't want to take 15 minutes out of their schedule to do those other things. But in the long term, I feel like that's a liability. Like unless you go really heavy for 6 months during the winter, or you do like some maintenance all of the time, like you'll see issues come up in the long run.
It's hard to get motivated. I'll tell you, after I've done my run, the last thing I want to do is go to the gym. It's a little bit like cleaning my bike. I came home yesterday from my ride. I was like, I got to clean my bike today. And it's like the last thing I want to do. I need to like lie around for an hour and watch YouTube or something before I get motivated to get out there, do it.
I feel like that it brings up a good point about just like how to create the conditions or like the environment to get things done that matter to us. So if you don't like doing some of that stuff, like maybe you incorporate that into a part of your warm up, like especially you're going to the track, for example, and you're going to do a speed workout. Like if you run whatever, a couple miles to get there, and then you do a little bit of stuff at the track before you do your track workout, or when you come home and you're like tired from your ride or your run and you are going to like snack and like, I don't know, lay down on the floor to watch some entertainment, like doing it while you're doing that. Like maybe you have some fluids and you don't eat a lot at first, but you like start to do a little bit of stabilizing exercises and then start eating. Like I feel like just finding whatever works for you to get it into your routine is pretty important.
Yeah. I don't think there's any secret, right? Like it's hard to get motivated to do another workout after workout. Like I've gone for a bike ride and then I want to go and do a run, or gone to the gym and then I need to go ride my bike. Like that lull in between is really tough. It's maybe I would say one of the most mentally challenging things I've had to overcome with fitness is being able to do a double workout like that. Yeah, and I don't have any real good advice on how people can overcome it. Like you just have to kind of push yourself. The only thing I can say is like, I just like going to the gym and always have. I think it's fun. There's lots of stuff to play with and I feel really good and get to listen to music and everything. So I don't know. I've always found that experience to be great, but I don't hear a lot of people who seem to feel the same way. But I don't know, maybe it's just mindset or something. I once had this woman tell me that, oh, I don't like running on the treadmill and I call it the dread mill.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, look, if you're going to call it that, you're never going to learn to like it. So at least having like a positive mindset and trying to look at it in a positive way will at least set you on the path to maybe finding enjoyment there. But if you don't do that and you look at it and you dread it, like you'll never get there.
Yeah. And I feel like it's kind of like chemical reactions where like you have to get past that hump of like the critical energy required to start the reaction. But once you have like any kind of momentum, it's way easier to maintain it. So like even if you just get started with like something really pretty basic, like you literally just do one set of side leg raises and one set of clamshells after your like 3-mile run, just proving to your brain that it's like not a big deal and it's not painful, it's not actually difficult, it's not actually like a big deal to do this like minor thing. It becomes way easier to do it and to keep up that habit. And
you know what, there's nothing like an injury to motivate people to change their routine. That's the other one I've seen is like, it's even happened to me, like I hurt myself or I got injured. I'm like, okay, now I'm really motivated again to get back out there and go to the gym or do whatever it was that like I know will make an improvement, and I've been neglecting it, and then that's like always the best reminder.
Yeah, I feel like that is a good point, because like it's hard to see that like, oh, like 6 months, a year, 3 years from now, like I'm gonna have like a really messed up knee or hip injury because I'm not doing like 10 minutes 3 times a week right now. But if you think about that, it's like, oh, like 10 minutes a few times a week is not a big deal if that means that I can keep riding in a couple of years when I might get injured. And it's like, you don't know the future, but we do know that certain things are known to like increase or decrease your risk of having some of those injuries. And I think that comes into play in a lot of cases. Like it's just like saving for retirement. It's like, you're going to retire at some point, or you're going to be old enough that you want to, like, you can't just like not save enough for doing that if you're in a position at that moment in time where you can afford that. Like I think it's like quite obvious, but it's like if you are doing 10 minutes a day 3 times a week, even just twice a week, and you're doing some of that like core work and some of that hip strengthening stuff, it's like you're setting yourself up to like not have knee injuries 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And the same with strength work. I feel like that's another thing for cycling. Like cycling is not good for your overall strength. It creates muscle imbalances. Same with running. And if you don't do anything else, like you can do that for a while, but eventually it will probably catch up with you. And again, everyone has different risk profiles, but it's also good for your bones to do other things than cycling. Because if you never do any impact or load bearing stuff, it increases your, like cycling increases your risk of having osteoporosis. And obviously that's more of an issue for female athletes. It is maybe more of an issue for some male athletes than others. Like some people are never going to have issues with their bones. They're never going to have issues with their joints, but you're just inviting problems if you are like extremely thin and train really hard, but only on the bike, and you never do strength work and you never go running. And that's a part of the reason why I try to maintain at least some habit of running most of the time. Like even if I go a few months without running, like I'll go back to it and pick it up. So I'm like, right now I'm running like 4 or 5 days a week, like short runs, and then doing like something a little bit harder once or twice a week. And it's mostly just so that I don't break my hip when I'm 50 or 60, you know?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I got into it. I was traveling off for work, and like I just couldn't bring my bike, and I'd be tired and jet lagged, and my runs weren't very good. But at least I could I'd get out there. I would look at these times, and I was like, I can't even get close to that. Like it's just I just wasn't in the right frame of mind or as rested as I needed to be. Well, so what's the wrap up here? What's the final word on this, besides that, of course, that we both believe running doesn't necessarily destroy your knees?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's good to just remember that all things in training and like biology, it's like stress is good for you. You don't want to like overwhelm your body and go try to do a marathon without training, or like go do a 100-mile bike ride when you haven't done 30 miles anytime recently. But like more stress within reason is good for you. And it's good to mix up the stress so you're not just getting really strong in one way and really weak in others. And definitely running is good for your joints. It's good for your body in general. And cross training, like find things that you enjoy doing that will do something different than your main activity so that you can maintain your ability to do what you want to be doing for longer. And if it's just like a health thing, it's totally worth it. And if you are focused on performance, you might not be doing weight workouts or runs like in the middle of the racing season, but during the off season, it is helpful to do some other stuff because it will improve your performance. And I think that is well established, like especially weight training for cyclists, but also for most cyclists, like running is going to be beneficial to them because it taxes your cardiovascular system at a very high level, and you can supplement your cycling with some cross training, and running is one of the best activities you can do.
All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
So yeah. Hey, like our video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you back here next week.
Bye.